Hello, this is Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
Hi, this is Dave Gahan from Depeche Mode, and you are listening to
My Nerd World.
Welcome, my fellow devotees, and it's Depeche Mode, the podcast. I'm your host, Jon Justice. I titled the show this week, A Brief Period of Rejoicing, because we're heading into Thanksgiving, but also I want to talk about my relative surprise at the amount of promotion that Depeche Mode M for the physical release is receiving, and also the curious addition of new merchandise available at DepecheMode.com at the official website. So we're going to talk about that this week, and we'll get into your listener feedback as well. As always, I want to remind you that if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, if you're enjoying the show there, I hope you take a moment and you'll do that. Also, whatever podcast platform that you're enjoying the show on, I hope you'll follow it to make sure you never miss an episode of Depeche Mode, the podcast. And as always, if you want to support the podcast and you enjoy reading or listening to science fiction, or you have friends or family that enjoy reading or listening to science fiction, I've written a 7-book science fiction space opera series, an exciting mix of The Fast and the Furious, Star Wars, Ready Player One, the sci-fi adventures of the 70s through the 1990s. There's a lot of Depeche Mode references in there as well. It's called EMBARK, and it's available at Amazon.com. Just search for EMBARK and Jon, Jon Justice, and you'll find the entire series there available in the ebook, Kindle Unlimited, hardcover, paperback, and audiobook, narrated and produced by this Depeche Mode devotee. All right, let's get into the show for this week. No new news, and this isn't surprising. We are 10 days out at the time of recording the show this week from the release of Depeche Mode M, the movie, the entire concert, the live album, and, of course, those 3 unreleased tracks from the Memento Mori sessions that will go along with In the End. And, again, I know every time I talk about In the End, I just end up wiping out on it, but I was just listening to it again yesterday on a different sound source at home, and a lot more popping out of that song than what I had initially heard on my, dozens of listens already. Just a fantastically produced track, much like all the albums. I know that others have had problems with the production work on Memento Mori, but to me, the production work is just stunning. And that same thing rings true for In the End, which has me even more excited for those 3 unreleased tracks. But something else is going on, too. If you pay attention to the Depeche Mode social media feeds, you may have noticed that they've put up some recent posts specifically promoting the vinyl release of Depeche Mode M, the physical release, and the live concert in Mexico City. But they put up a really interesting just little video of the pressing of the different colored vinyls that'll be available coming up on December 5th. And while this isn't anything out of the ordinary or anything new, it got me thinking and reminded me of, we're getting new Depeche Mode. Like, I was recalling back when 101 came out and what a big deal that was at the time. Now, granted, in that period of the late 80s heading into the 90s, when Depeche Mode was reaching its apex mountain, if you will, the way that we viewed the band being much younger, anticipating the releases, we had very little in terms of entertainment available to us compared to what we have now. We're surrounded by things to capture our attention and entertain us. And it wasn't like that when you go back and look at 1988, 89, 90 through 94, and before the invention of the internet, and of course where we are now with smartphones. But you go back to the release of 101, the physical release of the VHS at the time, the cassette and subsequent CD, and that was a huge deal. And when I saw, and I suppose that's the point, and so hat tip to the label and the promotions team on Depeche Mode social networking platforms for putting together a relatively simple video of the vinyl pressings for Depeche Mode Mexico City, because it worked. It's awesome that we're getting this box set coming up in just 10 days that includes an entire unique film experience itself with Depeche Mode M on top of the complete concert from those Mexico City shows and those unreleased tracks. And we get the video, we get the audio. We have new Depeche Mode coming out, including new songs that we've never heard. And that's not to say that any of you listening have downplayed this at all. I think for me personally, and I'll just speak for me, when it comes to these new tracks that we're getting, I think mentally I go, well, they're not new. These were recorded for the Memento Mori sessions, and so they're essentially B-sides. These came out or were produced going back to 2001, right? 2002, 2003. I mean, they're a couple of years old now, but be that as it may, we haven't heard them. These are new songs to us. So essentially, we're getting a 3-track EP, a 4-track EP if you include in the end, along with everything else that I've mentioned. And this is why I titled the show this week, A Brief Period of Rejoicing, because as Depeche Mode fans, we really should be celebrating this release coming up. I didn't have that mentality up until seeing those videos posted online, which also got me thinking that this is not a band, in my opinion, right now, that is on its last legs. This is a band that's just gone through an incredibly traumatic experience, a couple of years now with the losing of Fletch. We know that Dave and Martin had to rekindle, forge a new relationship out of that tragedy. And with that came this masterpiece of an album, comparatively speaking to the albums that most recently preceded it in Memento Mori. And then this amazing world tour that took place. And while I think there is still a possibility the band could be drawing near an end, all indications would be that they're not. That we're just looking at the next phase, for however short that phase might be, of what Depeche Mode will eventually become of just Martin and Dave and their touring crew. I have very little expectation that we'll end up getting another full-fledged massive tour like we saw with Memento Mori. But I've said many times on the show since the conclusion of the tour and the promotion of that tour that I'm still convinced that there's more music to be made from Dave and Martin, and I'm excited to see what it is that they can produce, having Memento Mori in the mirror and also the passing of Fletch in the mirror, and we enter into this new duo phase of Dave and Martin. Because on top of that, on the official Depeche Mode website, they've released a lot of new merchandise. None of it is really earth-shattering. Drawing upon previous albums, you have various T-shirts and hoodies for men and women that are available there. But there's been quite a bit of promotion for that new merchandise on the website on a level that we simply haven't seen. It's not like they're hammering commercials, but I'm receiving fairly constant emails from the official Depeche Mode site letting me know, hey, there's new merchandise available. Hey, there's discounts on this merchandise available. Hey, don't forget, Depeche Mode M, the box sets are coming out on December 5th. Hey, here is a video showing how the physical pressing of the vinyl albums is going. This does not come off to me as a band that's looking to end things anytime soon. And I know that you probably are with me in praying that that does not happen. So this is a time of rejoicing. And what an amazing Christmas gift that we Depeche Mode fans are going to have coming up next week. So my only question is, how long is it going to take for the orders to be shipped, and how long past December 5th am I going to have to wait until I get my hands off of this release? And, of course, I will be sharing my full review of Depeche Mode M in its entirety of everything that is included once I get it in my hot little hands. As always, your thoughts, TalkShowNerd@gmail.com, or leave a comment up on YouTube. And with that, let's go ahead and get to your listener feedback this week. First off, we hear from friend of the show, Jim C., who writes this. You've mentioned several times on the last few podcasts how much you enjoy the song Soul With Me from Memento Mori. I wasn't a huge fan of the song when the album first came out, but I decided I should give it a try again to make sure I wasn't missing something. And wouldn't you know it, I've now realized I was wrong and you were right. I don't think there's anything wrong or right about it. It's all subjective, but I appreciate it. That is a good song. It's weird how a song or an album won't resonate with you at first, but for whatever reason, when you go back to it, suddenly you really like that song or album, and you wonder how you could have missed it the first time. That said, I also revisited My Joy after you played it on the podcast. That one I just can't seem to like, no matter how hard I try personally, and no offense, none taken, I didn't write it. I think it's one of Martin's weaker songs from a lyrical standpoint. Additionally, that song is from an era where I really struggled with Depeche Mode. I compare it to a marriage where you stay together out of love, but the relationship was really challenged. The block of Depeche Mode albums, beginning with Songs of Faith and Devotion, Ultra, and Exciter, are my least favorite albums. Don't get me wrong, there are some fantastic songs on all three of those albums. However, I never cared for the more grungy rock sound of Songs of Faith and Ultra. And I just never connected with Exciter, even though I tried many times. I tend to prefer Depeche Mode songs that lean a little more toward the electronic sound rather than the hard guitar sounds on songs like Mercy in You, Barrel of a Gun, or Useless. I think one of the reasons that I just can't seem to come around on My Joy is it's just a little too hard rock sounding for me. Love the podcast. Thanks for all you do. Friend of the show, Jim C. Now, as I said, and as I'll say again here, it's all subjective, and I can certainly understand that standpoint. And I've mentioned several times the first time when I got my hands on I Feel You and I heard that track, it was challenging for me. What is my beloved electronic band doing? What are these guitars about? What's this squeal as the song starts? It challenged me to broaden my own viewpoint, and this is not a dig on Jim at all. I'm just saying at the time for me, it challenged me to sort of keep an open mind because I was a lot more exclusive in my listening habits and an elitist when it came to listening to different types of music. It's incredible how much that changes when you get older. Like, I'll listen to the Yacht Rock channel, and those are songs that I would have actively avoided like the plague when I was a kid. And now I find a level of nostalgia just from my random in-world listening of those relatively famous soft rock tracks. I wouldn't spend a lot of time listening to Yacht Rock, and it's usually seasonal when I do. Be that as it may, I hated that type of music when I was a kid. So Depeche Mode, I think, really helped me go and expand my horizons in terms of appreciation for music because I desperately wanted to love what I was hearing with I Feel You. And on a first listen, I was having difficulty doing that. And then I grew to really go and enjoy that song, even if I do still believe that My Joy would have been a better track to lead off that album with. All right, let's get to the to the next email this week. I'm making a quick note to myself because there's something that I want to mention at the end of the show. All right, let's go here to friend of the show, Andrew Fallon, Essex, England, writes this. Thank you again for the podcast. Useful information. Appreciate that, especially for someone like me who doesn't have a smartphone and isn't on social media. Good for you, Andrew. Wish I could do that. It seems really unfair that you kept us all informed about Depeche Mode M, but couldn't go see the film for yourself. If it's any consolation, I kind of know how you feel. We had booked to go see the film at the IMAX cinema in Basildon, which seemed very fitting. I've been looking forward to this for ages, especially seeing it in IMAX, but we had to cancel the whole thing due to my wife being ill. Oh, I hope she's getting better. I was convinced that we were going to miss out on the film altogether and that we'd have to wait until it was available to stream. Thankfully, the missus is much better now. Oh, that's good. And we eventually saw the film somewhere else, but on a cinema screen that felt more like an oversized TV. On the whole, I thought the film was very good. It really brought to life the music. And there were a few times when it kind of sent a shiver down my spine as if I were there in person. Incidentally, watching the film, I noticed that Christian Eigner's drumming was a big part of what brought the music to life, making it quite powerful and giving it a real edge. There's a real division between the people's views on Christian's drumming. I mentioned last week how much I enjoy it on the live version of Ghosts Again, and I had somebody say that they just thought it was garbage, not using that clean of language. But again, it's all subjective. With regard to the Mexican death stuff, some of this was quite interesting, but some of it was also a bit weird, even creepy. In general, it didn't seem to fit the songs at all, and ultimately it was a distraction from the concert performances. I don't want to be too critical, but it felt like the director had taken the general theme of mortality and then gone off on his own tangent rather than trying to embrace the spirit of DM's music in any way. Some of the camera work was really good, but I think the filmmakers could have done a much better job incorporating Anton Corbijn's visuals, especially as they are such an important part of DM's live act. I also think the film would have been better if they'd left out certain songs. Sister of Night, Wrong, and included others like Walking in My Shoes and Black Celebration. I don't really understand why Ghost Again was relegated to the credits. All in all, the film was really good. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I hope you enjoy it as much as we did when you finally get to see it. Thanks again and best of wishes, Andrew Fallon. My guess, I don't have any... thank you for the email, Alan. I greatly appreciate it. My guess is, and I have no evidence of this whatsoever, but if I had to guess as to why certain tracks were left off, I think the easy answer is this was the director's choice, but I'm more interested in why it was the director's choice. And I'm wondering if, we as fans are looking at this through a particular lens as being hardcore fans and knowing every single intricate in and out of every single song. As a matter of fact, I remember a couple of weeks back, I was on the home forum, Depeche-Mode.com, and somebody had actually found, and I can't remember exactly where it is, but they found a discrepancy in the instrumentation in Mercy in You. There's actually a moment in the song that I never, ever noticed where there's a slight beat that's kind of off the mark, almost like it was an artifact in the recording process. Now I can't unhear it, but I had never noticed that before. I just thought it was incredible. You learn something new. But I think the director himself wasn't as hardcore of a fan as you and I are. And because of that, chose certain tracks over other tracks, probably because of a lack of familiarity towards them, where you and I may seem like it would be obvious choices to include, as Andrew said, certain songs over other songs. The director, being more of a casual fan, doesn't think of it in those terms and is going off of what he feels is best fit for the film. And listen, that's probably an obvious statement, an obvious observation. He's the director. He chose the songs. I just think it's his lack of familiarity with the music that probably prompted him to do that, wherein if it was a fan that was making a film like that, you would probably see a set list that would be more widely accepted by fellow hardcore fans because they're coming from that particular point of view. All right. Off that word salad, let's go and hear from Dom. Dom writes this: Hello, sir. Love the podcast. Definitely going to check out your Star Wars podcast as well. I feel like we would be buddies if you lived closer, being the same age, both married with kids, and love Depeche Mode and Star Wars. There's definitely a track there. Just wanted to mention how much I love My Joy. I agree with you 100%. I was lucky to see M with my wife and kids in IMAX, and I definitely agree with you about the crowd. They need to put their phones down and experience it. This has been a topic, and I don't know if it was born out of the podcast or just other people had the same reaction that I did, but I've seen this comment in several places from Depeche Mode fans after watching that particular video and seeing those screens and being frustrated by it. The people on their cell phones recording the show. Really excited about the live CD. They truly sound better than ever. I was able to see them live with my 2 older kids. My 9-year-old wants to see them live now more than anything since the movie M. We will be watching the Live in Mexico City show at home the weekend it's released. Thank you for the great podcast. I look forward to it every week. P.S. Your novels are on my Christmas wish list. Can't wait to check them out. Be well, stay safe. Thank you again, Dom. Thank you, Dom. It's very kind of you, and thank you so much for the podcast. I had a comment that popped up on YouTube, and somebody said that they wished that I could talk about the World Violation Tour for those newer fans that didn't have a chance to attend that particular show. And I wanted to take a moment and just talk about that, because after reading that comment and reflecting back on that particular tour, and I know the frustration that so many of us fans have that we never received a proper physical release of that tour. It really is a shame. The band at the time wasn't into releasing an album for every tour. I don't think that even started until Exciter, right? The World Violation show was incredible. And if there was any show that ever should have been captured in, a film documentary or a film style, like what we're getting with Depeche Mode M and what we've got with Spirits in the Forest and Devotional, it was certainly the World Violation Tour. It was a much different show than what we ended up getting with Songs of Faith and Devotion, which really amplified Songs of Faith and Devotion. it was the band, in my opinion, transitioning out of a more traditional live framework and then leaning into Anton Corbijn's visuals and stepping up the production value of the show. I remember going to the first show and the first couple of shows, because I think I saw that tour like 9 times, if I'm not mistaken. But I remember going for the first time and just being absolutely blown away by what I was seeing visually. It was such a departure from 101, having spent so much time with 101, with the movie release and wearing out the VHS tape, going and seeing this new show. The moment that you arrived inside the arena to see the huge curtains with the DM, when the intro music starts and it's collide and the lights are going, timed perfectly with the music in and of itself. I imagine at that moment in time in 1991, they were probably integrating more of an automatic light show system as opposed to having somebody physically go and do the lights as they were and conduct the light display during the 101 show. And then just opening of the curtains and the arrival of the band on stage and Dave's kinetic performance, ramping up to even another level from what he was doing on stage with 101. And again, the way the stage was set up, the lighting, and then you get to the actual instrumentation and what Alan and the band did in crafting the live versions of the songs for this immaculate set list. Electric is really the only way I can describe it. There was a different energy and vibe on the World Violation Tour than there was for Devotional. Devotional did have that sense that you were at some type of ceremony, and I've gotten into this in the past, where in the World Violation Tour, I wouldn't say it was a party vibe, but it was just this energetic and, again, electric experience. And then also the introduction of Anton's visuals really bringing about a different level, especially in terms of the fandom. Because at that time, and I guess we still do, but not as hardcore as we used to be, at least not all of us. Some of you are, I know this. But you get into every single aspect of the band, every single nuance. If there's an interview done with the band, who's the person that interviewed that individual? If there is a band that referenced Depeche Mode, suddenly now you're a fan of that band. And certainly anything at all visually tied to the band was of almost equal importance. If it was attached to Depeche Mode, it had some meaning to it. And so now Anton Corbijn is adding in these spectacular black and white images to go along with the amazing renditions of the tracks on this incredible set list. And it just created this entirely new live concert experience that I really had never been through before. Now, subsequently after that, it was interesting because it seems like a lot of other bands were maybe not taking cues, but were taking advantage of emerging technologies. I specifically remember Nine Inch Nails, and something very similar happened. If you go off of the touring for Pretty Hate Machine and compare that to the tour that took place and what the concert was like for the Downward Spiral, much in the same way, just the whole cinematic experience, or theatrical experience is a better way to describe it. The theatrical experience just went to a new heightened level with the Downward Spiral tour, much in the same way that Devotional did. If I had a physical release of the World Violation Tour, if we had a physical release of the World Violation Tour, I'd be hard pressed to say which concert I enjoyed more. They were both very different experiences. And the fact that they were different, the World Violation Tour, and it's probably, again, a really obvious thing to say, but it's still relevant. The World Violation Tour did really encapsulate the vibe around Violator. There was an energetic vibe around that album. That album is truly special and unique. And we felt it as fans at the time. Once again, a departure from music for the masses, but it just had this, there was a coolness factor to it. It was awesome to be a Depeche Mode fan. Dave was just at his peak. They all were. The way they were dressing, the songs themselves. And the World Violation Tour really exemplified the vibe of the album in and of itself and then translated it across the catalog of songs outside of Violator. And the same thing can be said about what Songs of Faith and Devotion and the Devotional Tour did. That tour was incredibly representative of that album, and the tracks on that tour that were not from that album also took in that same vibe as well. Unique experiences in and of themselves that I will truly never forget. And the tours after that, none of them really had the same sort of impact. The one that I would point to the most would probably be the Exciter Tour. I thought, while that album I still very much enjoy, was clearly very different and more minimal in its approach, but that tour was pretty incredible. I enjoyed the visuals on that tour. I enjoyed the instrumentation of the tracks on that tour. And if I were ranking, I would put the Exciter Tour right up there with Devotional and the World Violation Tour. And I would put that ahead of the Music for the Masses and the 101 Tour as well. That is special in and of itself for a whole host of different reasons. But if I'm going to go back in time and experience a tour in any way, shape, or form, those are the three tours that I am going to look at going and experiencing. The Memento Mori Tour might eventually reach that category, but it's so fresh in my mind that I'm not ready to go and add it in there. I'm traveling back in time. Those are the tours that I'm going to. And the tour that I will pick would be the World Violation Tour. If I had the machine that popped up, you can time travel, but you can only go to a Depeche Mode concert. Which one do you want to go to? And I would say Dodger Stadium, World Violation, take me there now. Thank you so much for checking out this episode. I hope you have a fantastic Thanksgiving for those that are celebrating Thanksgiving here in America. Hopefully I'll be back next week. At least that's the plan. Until then, I hope wherever you are, you're happy, you're healthy. I hope you're safe. Again, happy Thanksgiving. God bless to you and yours. And I'll talk to you all real soon. Bye.